When Cain killed his brother Abel and ran away, he found a wife. But wait, where did she come from? If Adam and Eve only had 3 sons that we know about, Cain, Abel, and Seth, then who was this mysterious woman? And here's what makes it even stranger. Genesis tells us Adam and Eve had other sons and daughters, but not one daughter gets named, not a single one. Were there other people living outside the Garden of Eden that the Bible doesn't mention? Or did something else happen that history has kept quiet about? Today, we're digging into one of the oldest mysteries in human history. If you're curious about the hidden stories and unanswered questions in Scripture, hit that like button and subscribe to Bible Breakdown Hub. We're here to explore the Bible's deepest mysteries together and grow in understanding as a community of believers. When God sent Adam and Eve out of the garden, they lost more than just a beautiful home. They lost their direct connection with God and the pure, simple life they once knew. They headed east into rough, unfamiliar territory where survival became their daily struggle. And it was there, far from paradise, that their children were born. Genesis chapter 5 says it plainly. After Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. So yes, daughters existed. The Bible confirms it. Without women, humanity would have ended right there. But here's the puzzle. Why do we only hear about Cain, Abel, and Seth? Why are the daughters never named or mentioned again? Cain arrived first, the very first human born outside Eden. From his earliest days, he carried the weight of being the oldest, the one expected to lead the way. Then Abel came along. These 2 brothers grew up side by side, yet they couldn't have been more opposite. Cain worked the soil, breaking his back under the hot sun with rough, calloused hands. Abel tended sheep, spending quiet days in open fields, feeling the wind and watching the clouds drift by. There was a calmness in Abel that Cain never had, and eventually that difference turned into bitterness. Then came the day both brothers brought gifts to God. Cain offered crops from his fields, but Abel brought the best lambs from his flock, the firstborn, the finest he had. God accepted Abel's offering, but rejected Cain's. In that moment, something broke inside Cain. He felt wounded, humiliated, and pride started pulling him toward something dark. God saw what was building in Cain's heart and spoke to him directly. "Why are you angry? Why do you look so downcast? If you do the right thing, won't you be accepted? But if you don't, sin is waiting right at your door, ready to attack." It was both a warning and an invitation to turn back. But Cain didn't take it. Instead, he made a choice in silence. The next day, Cain said to Abel, "Let's go out to the field." Abel didn't hesitate. He trusted his brother completely and walked beside him just like always. But out there in that field, Cain turned on him. He grabbed a rock and struck Abel hard on the head. Abel fell, dying instantly, with that same trusting look still in his eyes. His blood sank deep into the ground. For the first time ever, death came into the world, not from disease or old age, but from jealousy and rage. Then God's voice thundered in Cain's mind. "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain's heart had grown cold. He answered, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" It was the most painful kind of lie, not just because he denied what he'd done, but because he refused to take any responsibility. God spoke again. "What have you done? Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Now you are cursed. The soil that drank your brother's blood will no longer grow crops for you." Everything changed for Cain in that instant. The ground he once farmed would never produce for him again. But then something strange happened. Cain cried out, "You're driving me away from this land, and whoever finds me will kill me." Wait, whoever finds him? Who else was out there? According to the story so far, only Adam, Eve, and Cain were alive. Abel was dead, so who was Cain afraid of? That single statement hides a deep mystery. Either Cain knew there were other people in the world, or God had told him more people would come. Either way, His fear was very real, yet God chose to protect him. The Lord put a mark on Cain so no one who found him would harm him. We never learn what this mark actually looked like, whether it was visible, spiritual, symbolic, or something else entirely. All we know is that it worked. It made people afraid to touch him. So Cain left. He literally walked away from God's presence and headed east of Eden to a place called Nod, which means wandering. But something surprising happened there in exile. Cain slept with his wife, and she got pregnant and gave birth to a son named Enoch. Then Cain built a city and named it after his son. But hold on, how did Cain find a wife? Up to this point, the Bible has only mentioned Adam, Eve, and their 3 sons. So, where did she come from? There are 3 main ideas that try to answer this question. The first one, which most Bible scholars accept, is that Cain married his own sister. Now, that might sound shocking by today's standards, but it makes sense when you think about the context. In a brand new world where everyone came from one couple, brothers and sisters marrying each other would have been unavoidable. Back then, there were no laws against it because laws hadn't been created yet. Humanity was just beginning, and the rules we have now didn't exist. Also, people lived incredibly long lives back then. Adam lived to be 930 years old. That meant multiple generations could live at the same time. Over those centuries, Adam and Eve could have had dozens of children. Cain could easily have married a younger sister or even a niece. It was normal, the only way to fill the earth with people, and Cain wasn't the only one. Even later in the Bible, we see this pattern. Abraham married Sarah, his half-sister. Isaac married his cousin's daughter, Rebekah. Jacob married Leah and Rachel, who were his uncle's daughters. All these marriages happened within families, and without them, the nation of Israel wouldn't exist. So everything points to Cain's wife being one of his sisters, a daughter of Adam and Eve. But if that's true, why doesn't the Bible say it clearly? Why does a book that carefully lists ages, names, and family lines stay silent at exactly this moment? That brings us to the second idea, and this one is controversial. What if God created other humans besides Adam and Eve? It sounds radical because it's not explicitly in the Bible, but some people suggest it to fill in the gaps. After Cain killed Abel, God sentenced him to wander. Cain responded with fear that someone would kill him. Later, we learn Cain took a wife, had a son, and built a city. But you don't build a city for 3 people. You need workers, families, entire communities. Where did they all come from? These questions have led some to suggest that maybe Adam and Eve's story isn't the only human story, just the main one. Maybe God created other groups of people elsewhere as part of a bigger plan. In Genesis chapter 1, it says, "So God created mankind in his own image." Some believe this refers to humanity in general, while the Eden story focuses on one specific couple. Under this theory, Cain's wife wouldn't be his sister, but a woman from a different human line not mentioned in Scripture. People living outside Eden, and the city Cain built would have been filled with these other groups. But this idea directly contradicts a core Christian teaching, that all humans come from one man. The Apostle Paul clearly stated, "From one man he made all the nations." This isn't a small detail. It's the foundation of the gospel. If we all descend from Adam, we all share his fallen nature, and we all have access to salvation through Christ. But if there were 2 separate human lines, then some people wouldn't have inherited Adam's sin and wouldn't need a savior. That would tear apart the entire Bible, from Genesis to the cross. For this reason, most Christian traditions firmly reject this theory. It undermines God's plan for redemption. So we've looked at 2 possibilities. Either Cain's wife was his sister, as the Bible suggests, or she came from another human line, which some propose but most reject. But there's a third possibility, and this one doesn't come from the official Bible. It comes from an ancient book that was preserved on the edges of biblical history, a book that might hold the answer. We're talking about the Book of Jubilees, written around the 2nd century BC. This isn't a secret book. It's just one that didn't make it into the Bible. Sometimes called Little Genesis, it retells the early biblical stories and adds details not found in the traditional text. The Book of Jubilees states clearly that Adam and Eve had daughters and even names them. It mentions a woman named Awan as Cain's wife. Yes, according to this ancient source, Cain married his own sister Awan, daughter of Adam and Eve. And she's not the only daughter named. The text also introduces Azura, another daughter who became Seth's wife. So we have an early family structure. Cain married Awan, and Seth married Azura. The Book of Jubilees even gives exact timing for these events using a divine calendar measured in jubilees. Each jubilee equals 49 years, and within this sacred timeline, humanity's first steps were carefully recorded. Cain was born in the first year of the third jubilee, exactly 130 years after creation. He was the first person ever born outside paradise, the first who never saw Eden. 2 years later, Abel was born. After the mourning period for Abel's death, Seth was born in the first year of the fourth jubilee, which was year 190. Seth came as a promise, as something precious being restored. The book also records the daughters' births. Awan was born in the 7th year of the third jubilee, making her 6 years younger than Cain. She was the first daughter of Adam and Eve to be named. In ancient Hebrew, Awan's name connects to sorrow, sin, and emptiness, though other interpretations link it to desire, longing, or strength. This double meaning isn't random. According to the Book of Jubilees, Cain married Awan when he was 40 years old. The text says he knew her in the land of Nod, and there, on that cursed ground, they had Enoch, and built a city in his name. So Awan represents the woman who carried life forward from exile, through the cursed line that came after Abel's murder. But Azura, the second daughter, has a deeply meaningful story. The Book of Jubilees says Azura was born in the 3rd year of the 5th Jubilee, year 197 after creation. Since Abel died before year 190, the two never met. Azura was born after Abel was already gone. But here's something fascinating. The Book of Jubilees reveals Adam and his wife mourned Abel for 4 weeks of years, and then they had Seth. They gave Seth his sister Azura, who had been promised to Abel before his death. Scholars interpret this symbolically. Azura was meant for Abel even before she was born, meaning Adam and Eve had planned their union for when they grew up. But Abel's murder prevented it. So Azura was first promised to Abel, then given to Seth after Abel died. From their marriage came Enoch, and with him, humanity's spiritual awakening. Azura was always destined to be part of the righteous line. Her marriage to Seth marked a fresh start in God's plan for humanity. Her name, Azura, connects to the blue of the sky and to lapis lazuli, a precious blue stone that ancient cultures associated with purity, truth, and closeness to God. In Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt, lapis lazuli decorated crowns, temples, and sacred objects. They called it the stone of heaven, and that's exactly what Azura symbolizes, humanity's return to God. From Seth and Azura came Enoch, and with him, something completely new awakened in the human heart. Until then, people hadn't actively sought God, but with Enoch, everything shifted. Genesis sums it up in one brief but powerful line. People began to call on the name of the Lord. For the first time, human beings realized they needed more than land, food, or children. They needed their Creator. With Enoch, worship was born. Humans understood they couldn't walk alone. They needed the God who made them. So, for the first time, prayers went up. Songs rose, and words were lifted not toward each other, but toward heaven. Enoch may not be as famous as Adam, Cain, or Noah, but it was under his guidance that humanity began to pray, gather together, and remember that God was still there. These two families represent two different paths, two branches of the same tree, one marked by exile, the other by the promise of redemption. From Enoch came a distinct line, quiet but powerful. From him came Canaan, then Mahalalel, then Jared. And from Jared came Enoch, about whom it would be said centuries later, Enoch walked faithfully with God. Then he was no more, because God took him away. A man who walked so close to the Creator that he never tasted death, but was taken straight to heaven. But even before Enoch, the path was already being laid. Each child learned not just how to farm or raise animals, but how to keep God's commands, even before they were carved in stone at Mount Sinai. Yes, even though the law hadn't been given to Moses yet, the Book of Jubilees says that from the very beginning, Adam passed down to his children the eternal rules of heaven, the festivals of the Lord, the Sabbath, laws of purity, justice, and the fear of God. It wasn't empty religion. It was a living covenant handed from father to son, generation after generation. While Cain's descendants built cities, forged weapons, and invented musical instruments, Seth's line built something deeper, a living memory devoted to the Most High. In that ancient world, people lived for centuries, seeing not just their children grow up, but their grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and even great-great-grandchildren. Adam lived 930 years. Methuselah, the oldest of all, lived 969 years. Throughout those long centuries, the righteous passed down the story of Eden, the fall, and the promise of return. They told it at sunset and repeated it at dawn. So even though sin spread quickly, there remained a family who remembered God. They were few, but they were faithful, living surrounded by a humanity that was drifting away, choosing power, control, and violence instead. And so the line continued. Jared had Enoch, Enoch had Methuselah, Methuselah had Lamech, and from Lamech came Noah. But during these years, something happened. The sons of God, those descended from Seth, began to marry the daughters of men. It was a union that should never have happened. Seth's descendants started to stray, attracted by the beauty of women from Cain's line, women raised in a culture of power, pleasure, and pride. And they married them. Genesis is clear. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. It was the merging of two worlds, the world of the covenant and the world of forgetting. From this union came giants, the Nephilim, men of great size and violence who filled the earth with their strength and cruelty. The Hebrew word Nephilim comes from a root meaning the fallen ones. They were violent men, infamous for their brutality, who forced their dominance on others. They were worshipped like demigods, but they were monsters. Genesis confirms this. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. The Book of Jubilees adds even more. When the children of men began multiplying on the earth and daughters were born to them, the angels of God saw how beautiful they were and took wives from among them. They bore children with them, and they were giants. Wickedness increased on the earth, and all flesh corrupted its ways. Men, cattle, beasts, birds, and everything that moves. All corrupted their ways and their order and began to devour one another. But behind this mixing was something even darker. According to the Book of Enoch, it wasn't just mankind who disturbed the order. A group of angels called the Watchers came down from heaven and took human women as wives. These heavenly beings abandoned their purpose and taught humanity forbidden knowledge that filled them with arrogance. They taught sorcery, alchemy, astrology, and warfare, revealing secrets mortals were never meant to know. In return, they fathered hybrid creatures, violent, corrupted beings. The Book of Jubilees confirms this clearly. The Watchers sinned and joined themselves with human women, causing great corruption on the earth. These giants wreaked havoc across the land. They ate people's food, destroyed their homes, enslaved entire populations, and when that wasn't enough, they started devouring each other. Corruption spread fast. The righteous became rare. The sacred line of Seth slowly faded, destroyed by their own disobedience. Violence filled the earth. The Book of Jubilees describes how sins multiplied. Blood was spilled without remorse. Women were abused, impure spirits were called upon, and tools were made not for farming but for dominating others. And here's where the Book of Jubilees and Genesis come together to reveal the same moment. The Lord saw that human wickedness was great on the earth, and that every thought and intent of their hearts was continually set toward evil. The earth itself shook. God, who had seen everything, who had shaped man with his own hands and breathed life into him, watched as his creation became corrupted to its core. The Lord regretted that he had made humanity on the earth, and his heart was filled with sorrow. It was there, at the edge of moral collapse, that the Creator delivered his judgment. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human beings I have created. Yet in the middle of that darkness, God found one, just one righteous man. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord, not because he was perfect, but because he stayed faithful. He lived surrounded by filth, yet remained clean. Noah wasn't flawless, but he was upright, and because of him alone, humanity wasn't completely wiped out. God's goal was never to erase humanity. God's true desire was to restore it. So he chose Noah to start again. The Book of Jubilees tells us that Noah learned and preserved the ancient laws given to Adam in Eden. Noah remembered the times when his lineage walked closely with the Almighty. He had no ambition to conquer, he simply wanted to obey. But Noah wasn't naive. He saw clearly what was happening around him. He walked through cities consumed by sin, fields covered with dead bodies, and marketplaces where souls were bought and sold. Every night he knelt down and wept for what was coming, until one day God spoke to him and commanded him to build the ark. Noah didn't understand at first, but he obeyed. For 100 years he worked with his hands to build it while the world laughed at him. The flood wasn't just judgment. It was a new Genesis, a second birth for the earth, a second chance for mankind. It preserved the ancient line of righteousness, the heirs of Azura and Seth, of Enoch and Jared, of Enoch and Methuselah. Noah became the last witness of the world that had been, and the first witness of the world to come. God didn't destroy humans out of anger, but reset humanity in order to save it. And so it all began again. Yet while the names of patriarchs filled the pages of Genesis, the names of women remain absent, even though without them, humanity's tree would never have taken root. When Cain was cast out, it was Awan who walked beside him. She hadn't shed her brother's blood, yet she bore the weight of exile. It was she who gave birth to Enoch, becoming the first mother of a people born apart from God. While Cain's line grew in shadows, another daughter of Adam and Eve, Azura, carried on the promised line. From her came Enoch, and with Enoch, humanity remembered it could still speak with God. These daughters, erased from the official story, became the roots of everything that followed. And they were not alone. Naamah, Noah's wife, crossed the flood. Sarah, Abraham's wife, became the mother of a whole nation, yet often she appears simply as the woman. Rebecca, Leah, Rachel, they gave birth to entire tribes, yet their tears never made it into the genealogies. Women whose lives stood at the heart of God's divine plan. Because when mankind fell, God didn't raise up just men, He raised families. And in the middle of a world that began with bloodshed, these women lit a spark of something new: continuity. They became instruments of something far deeper. They carried on the line that sustained the promise. They were the first to love, to hope, to endure. They were daughters of Eden, mothers formed from dust, keepers of the covenant that had yet to be written. God's plans are perfect but bigger than our minds could ever grasp. Often we want instant answers, complete explanations, precise details. Yet God doesn't work by our rules. He sees further and understands what we can't even begin to imagine. In the Bible we read, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." These words remind us of something essential. There are things we won't fully understand, and that's okay, because God doesn't ask us for absolute understanding. Instead, He invites us to trust Him, to walk with him even when we can't clearly see the path, and to seek his love, his guidance, and his presence. The Bible is the roadmap he has left for us. It doesn't explain everything, but it reveals what's truly important: his plan of redemption and his desire to walk alongside us, generation after generation, even when some puzzle pieces don't seem to fit. So now the question is yours. Who do you think Cain's wife was? Was she one of Adam and Eve's daughters? Which of the three main theories makes the most sense to you? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your voice is an important part of this exploration too. And if you want to keep uncovering the mysteries hidden within Scripture, subscribe to Bible Breakdown Hub. There are many stories still waiting to be shared. Blessings.